Welcome back, you guys, to a really special episode of Heidi's Lane. Now, I want to give you a little bit of a heads up. This episode contains content and stories that may be triggering for some people. We're going to go into some pretty heavy topics. But what we're going to talk about today, and that's suicide and healing from suicide and the life beyond the grief with a really beautiful woman that you're going to meet in just a second. It is so full of joy and so full of lessons and learnings and all of these things. And I know this is a topic that many people are affected by. I'm really excited to have my guest here today. She's someone that I met online, kind of online, kind of through a friend. And it was just this beautiful journey of watching this woman who had such a hard story, a heavy story, like a phoenix rise from the ashes and just become from this like quiet person that I saw stepping into her voice for the first time, really bloom and blossom online. And now, you guys, I have Melissa Methven with me. Hi, Melissa.
Thank you, Heidi, for the introduction.
Beautiful. Of course. Yes. You're an author. You're a certified breathwork instructor. You speak.
Yes, I'm a dental hygienist.
Hygienist, jack of all trades, master of none, but you're the master of all. Melissa, it's been so powerful to watch you. I remember the first time, because our mutual friend, one of my best friends on the planet, Kira Brinton, who's been on this podcast a lot, started this podcast. You wouldn't be sitting here for multiple reasons. Neither of us would be sitting here if it wasn't for Kira.
Yes.
She had helped me start this podcast, really pushed me. She's an activator, you know?
She is. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. That's why I'm here.
She helps people tap into gifts and just really step into their power. And she did that for me, which created this. And she did that with you.
Oh, for
created,
me.
Yes.
Yeah. So much of my healing was writing this book alongside with her. And also, while I was on this 5-day writing adventure to write this book, and she really guided me and to channel the book, she also, every night, she would put up this camera. It's like, okay, now that you'll be writing this book, you have to put yourself out there on social media.
And that's what I saw. I saw it. I loved
it. And I really dreaded it every night. I was like, oh, maybe she'll forget. Oh, maybe she will. And I was like, okay, take a deep breath. And she does, inspire and really believe in you and believe in using your voice. I mean, from a very young girl, if I go back home, I'm from Quebec City originally. All my family members cannot believe where I'm at now because I was this quiet, extremely shy girl. And I would just kind of like smile. And that was about it, but never stages and being in front of cameras. So they're just in awe of where I'm at now, but a lot had to do with Kira, pushing me all the time.
Well, that's why I really wanted you on. I mean, Kira's had so many authors. You're the only one that I've reached out to. And I'm like, I want you on because I feel like we all have tragedy and grief and hardship in different ways in our lives. And it just looks different for everyone, right? But the common theme is we all go through difficult stuff. And I think sometimes we allow that difficulty and the tragedy to define who we are in a way that limits us. And so I love finding, especially women, moms, you have 2 young kids who have been through hell. Like truly, you have walked inside of hell on earth and who have also walked through it. You walked inside and then through it and really did so much work to heal you. And I'm sure it's a forever process to heal yourself. And as you healed, you found your voice and you're sharing your story. So I'm so grateful for Kira's author adventures. To everyone listening, Kira's a book medium. And essentially, she's wildly magic. She will sit with anyone. Everyone has a story. You have a story. The person listening right now who's like, I could never write a book. You could write a book. I'm actually going to write mine with her.
Oh,
I'm going to the island in October.
You are?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Oh,
I'm doing what you did. I think. Did you go to the island?
I did not go to the island. I was in the beginning. And so we went to Mill Valley, California.
That's right. You did the treehouse.
Yeah, the treehouse. It was so magical.
And so you basically, Kira takes you for 5 days. And Kira, what did you do each day and how did you get this
Yes.
story out? And then we're going to talk about the story because
Yes.
this is the book, The
Yeah,
Truth
it's
Behind the
the
Smiles.
truth behind
It's
the
so
smiles.
cute.
And well, the minute I signed a contract to write a book with
Yeah.
her, things started coming. Like I started waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and then I jot down little notes, and the picture that's on the cover, that came up. And so there was I journal.
Yeah.
But really, once that we arrived in Mill Valley, California, she'll make sure your nervous system is kind of regulated. And so we would do breath work, we would dance breaks, we did hot yoga, which I laughed so much.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure she was gonna die that day when we did that, and I laughed so hard. But we walked in nature. We walked in the most beautiful, beautiful forest called the Muir Woods, and I was so inspired there. So she's really getting you to um, channel, to connect with God ultimately, and see what the message is. Oftentimes I'd call my late husband, and what message do you want me to share, and she just makes sure you don't burn out.
Oh, yeah.
Because some days I was so in flow.
Going.
I
Yeah.
would, and she was like, are you sure? Are you sure you
Yeah.
want to keep going? But
Yeah.
I had 12, 14-hour days.
Yeah. Wow.
I wrote 48,000 words
in 5
days.
What?
Yeah, without burning out. She makes sure your nervous system is kind of reset
Yeah.
all the time, and using tuning forks and things like that too. And then also sound bowls.
Yeah.
The cold plunging, breath work with Jeremy Mudick. He's just fantastic. And so the whole process was very healing for me as well, to write it out. Even parts of the book, I didn't even put it in there, but she says, just write it and then we'll delete it. It's just a form of letting go.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And putting out there. So I don't have to keep it all to myself. I didn't even want her to read it, because I know she had gone through so much suicide ideation for so many years. And I thought, gosh, this is going to be so hard for her to help me write this book, and because she probably could have resonated so much with my husband, where he was at. And but it was a way to release. And there was just a lot of fear too, because I didn't know how his family members would feel, putting it all out there. Because when he passed in March 2022, I felt this calling, this ease to call it as suicide, because I had so many people ask me, what do you want us to say? And I said, died by suicide. And even the hospital, everything happened when we were in Maui. And the hospital said for my children to call it a brain illness. And
to lie to them.
It wasn't lying.
Not a lie. So
no.
Not saying he's mentally ill. Yeah.
Yes, and they know the word suicide. They were there, and so to be upfront with them, but it is a brain illness. It wasn't him anymore where he was at. That was.
I remember hearing that in your book, actually.
Yes. Yeah.
Can you? So, and this is what I remember. I when I saw you online, I think it was the first reel I saw. You had shared a little bit of your story, and automatically my heart just shattered. I can't even imagine. And I remember sitting in that moment, not being able to imagine what it would be like to sit in your shoes and to know that, your husband's gone, my husband's gone, whatever, by way of suicide, and to relay that to the family and the kids and pick up a life that you shared with him, and you guys were so probably co-supports. Can you take me back to that day and share with the viewers listening, or the listeners, what happened so they understand your story?
So that day, we were in Maui because his dad was terminally ill, and
he was a dentist.
He was a
correct?
dentist.
Okay, so
and
that might be an important thing, because you share that the suicide rates of dentists, you say, are high. Do you have any stats on
high? If they, for a long time, it's the number one profession for suicide, and there's definitely a dark side in dentistry that I have a whole chapter about as to why, and bring awareness. I had actually, when my husband did pass, we, big dental community. I'm a dental hygienist. He's a dentist. We had a dental practice in Wasilla. And so many of them had shared their close call. and so they really wanted me to share the dark side of dentistry and bring awareness and start speaking about it. And so we can make some changes. But, his dad, he was really close to his dad, and his dad had a place in Maui, and his last dying wish was for us to all fly to Maui and be there for him. But I could tell at this point, this was so hard for my husband. He had been dealing with depression and opioid addiction. Unfortunately, that is also a big introduction in the dental world. It's backbreaking work very early on. And I'm a believer of energy exchange. And so when you are with patients in a dental office and they are so fearful and
Oh,
angry and all
goodness.
the
That
time,
makes sense.
you take it on.
Yeah.
You take that on and
And
it creates,
unknowingly.
yes,
Unknowingly, yeah.
yes. You want to remove that
Yeah.
fear, right? And he was so good at making them feel so calm. I mean, he's like 6'4", handsome, green eyes, great smile. So he would just make them feel so at ease. He was really good at that. But I think he never took care of himself taking that on. And that causes a lot of back pain and inflammation. And so, he goes to his doctor and that's what they normally prescribe. And unfortunately that just spiraled as this numbing as his career went on. And then once he got news about his dad, it was alcohol, mixing alcohol with it. So when we were in Maui and saying goodbye to his dad, it was just so overwhelming for him, I could tell. But his dad decided, oh no, I want to go back to Oregon and pass with my dog there. So the whole family left the island. And I remember my husband, he didn't want to go. But I felt, we need to get on that airplane.
And his dad's dying.
Yes.
And so you're like, what's going on?
Yes.
Your family's leaving. So this man, just to kind of paint a picture, because I remember this from your book, he's very charismatic. He's like the love of your life. I remember reading or hearing about the story, it's in this book, you guys, when you met. And it was like, almost like love it. Well, you were friends prior,
yes,
right?
Yeah, I was 23 when I met him. Yes.
And then it was like immediate connection and just so fun and energetic and this lively, huge 6'4" handsome man. Like I'm just envisioning, because you're beautiful. Anyone listening right now and can't see, physically you're beautiful and your heart's even more beautiful. I can imagine that the two of you were just a force together and just so dynamic. And then you have this life where you're creating, he's going to dentistry school and you have kids. And so you essentially, from the outside, have everything.
Yes. Yeah. We had a boy and a girl. And that's why on my book, originally I wanted to call it Picture Perfect, because that picture that's on the cover of my book, we would hand it out for advertisement for a dental office.
Yes.
Yeah. But I remember where we were at mentally and in our relationship then and what was truly going on. And unfortunately, my husband, he always wanted to be, I remember one Halloween, he was dressed as Superman and he always wanted to be like the Superman and strong and he can handle it. I check in with him, like, how are you okay? Like, I had offered, okay, there's better help. We can go on a retreat, healing retreat for himself. But he never allowed himself to see the truth, because I think that would have been, seen as maybe a weakness,
a hit to his
for
ego.
him. Yes, yes.
I think there's a lot of men. It's an epidemic. There are so many men who societally and culturally feel, and sometimes religiously, right, feel the pressure of having to carry the weight on their shoulders for their family and be there everything for their wife and make sure that they're, so even though, I would guess that you're there as a partner and saying, let me help you, let me help you. Probably didn't want to hand it over because the identity of Superman probably, I would imagine, felt.
No, yeah, he even had a sign, Superman, for a while. And he's so strong. He had his dental office, a beautiful home. And we've got, and lots of friends
Picture
and community.
perfect.
Yeah, picture perfect.
Literally picture perfect.
Yeah. And we did hide it well. We'd have a lot of fun working together at the office. We'd always come in and say hi to everyone and all the patients. He's great sense of humor. So we had that in common, that we hid behind our smile. Hid the pain. For him, his suppression and numbing was with opioids and alcohol. And And for myself, not expressing and using my voice starting for me showing up with chronic illness. Like it's all
Ooh,
started with the gut,
autoimmune or gut?
autoimmune.
Okay.
I started having cysts, and one of them that really caught my attention is I went to see two. I had to see two ENT because I started sounding like I was a smoker.
Wow.
And one ENT says, "You have GERD." I'm like, "I work out
All the
3, 4
time.
all the time, and I eat really well, and this doesn't make sense." But he's like, "Oh, well, here, take these antacids." And but
Mm,
he knew I wouldn't because I've always been more on the naturopathic side
yeah.
and functional medicine. So I went to see another specialist, and they put in an endoscope camera,
Okay.
and they found a cyst on my vocal cord. And that I knew God was telling me to use my voice.
Like, yeah, so just keeping it all in
Mhm.
inside of your marriage, to
Yes.
the dental offices, to your friends, to kind of keep together this, like almost keeping it all. I can almost imagine like bound up everything
Mhm.
and then just busting at the seams. And
Mhm.
same for him.
Yes. Yeah.
So when Scott is his name,
Mhm. Yes.
when Scott committed
Mhm.
suicide, was that a shock for
Oh,
his
yes.
office? Because no one knew anything was
Yeah, I
happening.
think they knew he was struggling, but okay, this is what a lot of people thought. But my husband, unfortunately, had been in a 7-year lawsuit,
Mm.
and that was so draining for him as well. So he had his dad, the
And
lawsuit, and
hiding
the
it, not
opposite.
telling anyone how heavy it was.
How he was hiding it, and so the office like, well, he's got the lawsuit, but yeah, he was hiding it from friends, family, even for myself. I would check in. I mean, I knew there was, but even the day before,
Yeah.
for example, we were in Maui the day before. I asked my husband, I said, okay, I knew he was going through so much. Do you want to just relax and just watch a movie? Or he's like, no, let's go snorkeling. Let's go to Lanai. We had some
Mm,
friends
mm,
there and we had a barbecue. We had the most fun.
mm.
Like it was actually, there was so much hope. He was smiling. Our friends that were there, like, and there was so much hope. We were holding hands. He was playing with the kids. We were all snorkeling. And then that next day, wake up, I felt though this darkness. There was this darkness, but I he had his phone and he had to deal with a lot of lawyers because we had lost
Yeah.
this
And
lawsuit.
so you have this amazing day,
Mhm.
which is his last full day,
Yes.
and you see a spark of hope,
Yes.
and there's love and joy, and you're excited. And then the next day, you're saying you immediately felt a
Yeah,
shift.
there was a shift. There was a big
And
shift.
it was that he got news that he lost. Is that
He
correct?
had news couple days
Okay.
prior that he had
Okay.
lost, but it was kind of like, okay, now he's checking his phone
Sinking in.
and then sinking in that he has to deal with this now.
Oh.
And I could feel this darkness. And I remember asking him, I said, well, he liked to do jujitsu and he had
Yeah.
a trainer in Maui that he liked. And I said, are you going to go there? He's like, yeah, probably. I said, okay, I'll take the kids to the beach while you go do that. But while I was at the beach watching my kids just swimming, I felt that it was strange. I still remember it so vividly. It's like this wave came upon me to pick up my phone and I text him. I just messaged him just to say that I loved him and thank you for the beautiful day the day before. And this is the first time I ever had him call out for help. He said, don't come up, send security. And that right there, I looked at my kids and I was like, we need to go now. And we were so close. We were so close to the condo. I just texted him right back. I said, don't, like, this is the first time he asked for, like, his way to ask for help. And I said, don't do anything. I'm coming up with the kids. And I was like, hopeful that knowing that I'm coming up with the kids,
And he wouldn't
you
do.
do
Yeah.
anything, but unfortunately, I'm luckily,
Mm.
it was just, I prayed to God before I went to see him. And I also protected my kids, I didn't want them to, it was just whatever I was going to walk into. I left them out of it. And, I thought I had saved them that day. I did CPR. I called 911 and my poor children, they still talk about Mom, you were shaking. And, the things that they kind of endured, like just hearing sirens, hearing all that, that's very much still part of, triggers, and it just spiraled. I thought I had saved him that day, and I spent 3 days at the hospital by his bedside.
Mm.
And unfortunately, after 3 days, he lost his battle. Um, and that was a big, it was so hard because I think as parents, we work really hard at protecting our kids. And that's kind of what I thought I was doing by pretending that we were all
Everything's
okay.
okay. We're going to be
Yeah.
fine. You guys are safe. Is kind
Yes.
of what we're
Yes.
intending.
Yes. I was like, oh, we still have a beautiful community. We do play dates. We travel. Like dad's gonna be okay.
Mhm.
But now I couldn't pretend anymore. It was like in that pain that I saw them in, I was like, oh my gosh, it's never any pain you want to see your kids go through. And I couldn't remove it. So on that day where I had to drive back from the hospital and tell my kids that dad's not coming
Mhm.
home, if it's the hardest thing I ever had to do. And I knew I couldn't stay in our condo that they had moved us in, and I said, "We need to go outside. We need to go outside, and we need to run in the ocean," because we were in Maui.
This is before you told them.
I had just told them, and I said,
Okay.
"We need to go outside. We need to go and run in the ocean." I just felt like we needed to go do that, and because it was just so much pain. I had sat with him. I feel like it was right after, but probably after hours of just sitting
Mhm.
around, and I just felt we need to go outside. And I remember holding both of my kids' arms, and we just ran in the ocean. And there's something about the ocean that is so healing. And I remember we would just dunk our heads and you'd hear the whales. It was
Mm.
so therapeutic. But I remember still to this day, my son just popping up his head and he says, "Mom, I'm so sad that I lost my dad. Now I don't want to live." And he was only
Mm.
6 years old. And
Oh,
that
Melissa.
stabbed me in the heart. That literally stabbed me in the heart, and that is really what propelled me to learn everything possible. What has helped some people to get out of that darkness? And I can't fall.
Mhm.
They cannot lose another parent, and I'm gonna do everything possible so that I'm gonna be okay and that my kids will be okay. And I remember I know he's an angel that came to me at the hospital. He was the organ donor specialist that I had to talk
Mm.
to.
Yeah.
And I was frantic to find a therapist for my kids because now
Mm.
we had to fly home to
Mm.
Alaska
Mm.
without dad,
Mm.
walk into our home without dad, and start this new life. I mean, I literally felt, I remember being in Hawaii and, everyone's happy and they're on vacation. And I remember being outside and I felt I was just this cloud was over me, and it was everything slowed down. It was a really strange feeling because nobody knew what just happened to us.
They didn't know.
No, I mean
Oh, and so
nobody.
you're having
Like that. You see just vacationers,
yeah.
and we're walking around. There was
Oh,
definitely
yeah.
some people
Mm.
around that had known that I had run to and asked for help. I mean, I had to deal with police,
Mm.
detectives, and all the things during that time, and it was so traumatizing, but I knew I had to go home and take care of myself. That the organ donor said, "You have to take care of yourself first." Like, I was a flight attendant back in the days, like, "Put on your oxygen
Yes. Oh,
mask
yeah.
first." I'd used
Yeah.
to always coach that to the parents,
Mhm.
and that really resonated with me. And I said, "Okay, well, give me a therapist now,
Right, yeah.
before we go back to Alaska, because I don't know how to answer all these questions." There's no like
No manual
there's
for
no
this.
manual.
No.
No manual. I had no clue how to answer all these
Mm.
questions and that the kids had, and the immense amount of pain and the shock for all of us. I had the hardest time just even leaving Maui. For me, just booking flights was so hard.
Mm.
It was overwhelming. And I was like, "Oh, I need to." I am almost I couldn't eat. I couldn't
Yeah.
sleep. I thought I was having a heart attack, heart
Mm.
palpitations.
Mm.
I and my kids couldn't sleep either. We'd fall asleep watching these Disney movies. They eventually by 2, 3 o'clock in the morning would fall asleep. But it was when they gave me that therapist. He was from Honolulu, and it was virtual. And I remember he says, "Let me guide you through a breathwork session." And I said, "Okay." And he did that for 10 minutes. And I still remember to this day, I had emailed him back.
Yeah.
I looked up, I had closed my eyes for the process. And when I looked up, I said, "Oh my gosh, I felt God." And I
Oh.
felt the peace. There was this calm. My heart rate went down. There was this calmness, kind of like a hug, and I knew I needed to continue doing that because I was such on a fight and flight, and that wouldn't be healthy to continue. I probably dealt with fight and flight for a good 8 months of go, 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 but once I decided to move to Arizona because I knew I couldn't stay up in Alaska. I was living on 50 acres, very isolated, and that darkness is hard up in Alaska, and I knew I couldn't be there
Couldn't
one
move.
more.
You needed sunshine,
I needed
vitamin
all the
D,
yes.
community, all of that stuff, which I think is wonderful, which kind of leads to my next question. I'm hearing, I mean, there's just so much that my heart breaks for what you've been through. And yeah, you talk about the waves of shame and guilt that in your book that come after something like this. And I couldn't help but sit there and think the waves of shame and guilt, then you have your own grief, right? And then you have your life that you have to piece together and figure out how to move your family. All these things you're talking about while you are allowing your kids and helping them process their emotions and feelings, right? So there was just a huge question I have, and maybe you already answered it, but it's like, how do you navigate that? How do you navigate it? And maybe the answer is what you just said. You found God.
Yes. Oh, yes.
And I know you talk about divinity and rainbows and stuff in your
Yes.
book. Can you kind of expand a little bit?
Yes. Yes. There were so many signs that I was guided along the way. And God is no doubt gave me that strength. All the prayers, a lot of people were praying for us and stepping up for us, but he really gave me that strength. If I look back, I have no clue how I did it. I had to deal with judges, lawyers, all the things. And when the kids would come back from school, I'd be with them. My friends had created this calming corner for them, and we'd sit there. But yes, my faith really grew. I always, believe in God. And I always say, whatever you're comfortable calling it, the higher power, universe, source, you've got to trust it. And I also knew I had to avoid alcohol. I was never a big drinker, but there's something in me that said, don't go there. Like I was almost afraid
you
of
just
it.
have a knowing.
Yes.
When you know, you know. Yeah. And the fact that you're afraid, it was kind of like, it was a darkness kind of repelling you.
Yes. Yeah. I knew, okay, I can't touch that.
Yeah.
Because that I need to stay. I had to find so much clarity every day to make big decisions. And for me to hear God the way he wanted me to go, I had to be so clear-minded and do the work. I'd do meditations in the prayer. And I would also try and take time. I didn't have a lot of time for myself, but even if it was just a couple minutes, or I'd drive to meet with judges and lawyers, and I would do breath work in the car. I'd listen, a little bit, just some breath. And that my faith really grew because there were so many signs. I still remember we have a long, long driveway in Wasilla, and the first day back for my kids to school, because they had missed a lot of school. I said, okay, it's time to go back. You'll need community and whatnot, and just a normalcy. And I still remember we're driving out of our driveway, and the ravens are big in Alaska. This huge raven came right in front of my car and led us until the stop sign. Yeah. Almost saying like, you're going to be okay. Like you're
on the right
supported. You're on the
track.
right
You're
track. Yeah. We had so many signs along the way that even Scott, he's given us little signs and guidance all the time. And so my faith has definitely grown because there's just no doubts.
I love this. And I mean, this is just a personal question when I hear someone talk about it. I'm so curious, and you had said at the beginning, you said, universe, higher power, whatever it is for you. Um, I'm so curious who God is to everyone,
Mm.
because I think we all have a slightly different view or vision of it. And in my opinion, I think they're all right.
Mhm.
Like everyone's, whatever it is. So I'm so curious who God is for you and who
Mm.
he's become in your life.
Oh, wow. That's a good question. Oh gosh, he is my protector. He is my guide. He is everything that I completely surrender to him. I pretty much I'm saying all of this where I get uncomfortable getting on stages and talking, it's because God is calling me to do these things, to use my voice, and I just need to get out of the way. So it's someone that is, I pray to for guidance and clarity um and yeah, he's just this higher power for me, and he's my father. I pray to him, my angels, my guides, and truly for the next step. I very much move on intuition and
Mhm.
wherever he calls me to do. As much as that's hard sometimes, and I'll build resistance. I'll be like,
Mhm.
well, I don't know if I'm ready
Yeah.
for that,
He's like, well, let me smack you in the face and tell you. So it like what's interesting to me, because I've kind of seen you step into your own like there's an energy, there's a beauty that has come with seeing you just have this power. I'm hearing you possibly say, well, I don't want to put words in your mouth. So let me just stop saying it's the things that God is to you now
Mm,
that you just listed: provider, protector, guide, clarity, all these things. What immediately came to me is, oh my gosh, that's very likely what Scott was to you, right?
mhm,
He was your provider, your protector. He helped with clarity and guiding. And what I'm seeing and feeling is how a tragedy could also, like for you, it deepened your relationship with
oh,
God,
yes. Mhm,
which sometimes when we have another person in our life, we become somewhat dependent. And I want to get into some of the stuff before he passed
mm,
away. But, and I've heard over and over, because I've been through my own tragedies and different things. And um, I didn't notice until the tragedy had happened and the person was gone, how much of my uh, support came from that
mm,
person. Which anytime support is in that person and not in a higher power or
so
God,
true.
we're not our fullest
Mm,
self.
mm,
So it's like I'm just seeing this beautiful, unexpected gift after something terrible and tragic, but the gift, like it's like so not, I don't even know what you would call it, but like you and your connection with God and who he's helped you become is like only by way
mhm.
of the hardest thing you've ever been through. Is that
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Now I
yeah.
call it a gift, that's for sure,
Wow.
because it
So you
is, I
can
have to
say
say,
all
yes.
of it was a gift.
Yes,
Wow,
yes,
how many people
yes.
can say, not many people
Yeah,
can say that.
no. And for a while too, I was thinking, gosh, how can we hurt, a 6-year-old like this and a 8-year-old, but now I
Almost like
see it as a
yeah.
gift.
Ooh,
It's a gift for them because
explain.
look at what they provide now. Look how much they've learned now, all the tools, like they cold plunge, they do breath work, they
Mhm.
love the sound bowls, and they talk about but just the importance of nutrition as well for, their mind. And they're inspiring actually other
Mhm.
kids, other people. Because actually I've had some adults saying, wow, if your kids are doing okay, like then I can get through this.
Yeah.
They've gone through so much tragedy to lose their dad at such a young age. And even before, like there was trauma even before, because Scott was definitely, you know, just in a dark room, in a dark place, and they felt that dark energy around. So they've seen dad, and when there's too much alcohol and all that. So
Yeah.
there's word trauma before.
Yeah.
They saw a lot.
This is this is the perfect opportunity to go back, because I
Mm,
wanted to go back. Um, so in your book, like I said, it's this picture of perfection, like actual perfection though, not just a picture of it. It seems like you guys both were just so bright and happy and everything when you first met. So going from this man who's charismatic and everything together to this deeply troubled man who's hiding his fears, like, or hiding his pain. I can't help but as a mom and as a, ex-wife, but, a partner and as just a woman want to know, how does that happen to go from so happy to so dark and painful? Was there a moment you remember in your marriage where you're like, something shifted with him?
No,
Like, because I think
absolutely.
people listening are like, what signs can I look for? How
Mhm.
can what do I do? How can I help?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I always now, and of course, I went back and I went back and I
Replayed
replayed
over and over, I
everything.
bet.
And so when I do go back, now I see signs. I mean, when I met Scott, I was 23 and he did not have a relationship at that point with his mom. He was not talking to her and she's a fantastic woman, but they had a broken relationship. That right there. And he was never willing to work on that. Right.
Mm,
So those are the little signs, right? If you're not, and so he, and he's thought, oh, if I just avoid
yeah,
her, it goes away.
yeah.
Right.
Right there, numbing.
Yeah,
So that's
numbing.
a sign.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
a sign,
When
and
something's heavy, let
yes,
me not look at it.
and for me, when I got to know him, I'm so close to my mom and my family, and I thought, "Well, how could this be
Yeah.
possible?" And I was like, "Well, if we're gonna have kids, we
Mm-hmm.
should connect with your mom. I'd love to get to know
Mm-hmm.
her." And so we slowly did, but he never really worked on that
The
relationship,
roots of
the
it.
roots of
Yeah.
it,
The like the
Yes,
infection underneath. It was the
yes.
symptoms and the band-aids,
So it's
but
again the numbing, if I
mhm.
just avoid it. And so, and then when we started building the dental practice, he was working 6 days a week. And that introduction of the opioids was then.
Happened. Yeah.
It happened then. So it's just a small
And
and
did you know?
I would see them. Yeah, I'd see them and I'd question it because I've never been, you know, like so much there's a time and place for pharmaceutical, absolutely, and I would question it, but he's like, "Well, you don't." I often get, "You don't know how it is to live with chronic pain," and I get it.
Yeah.
It's very, very hard. And so it was again those roots, but I'd say, "Well, let's work less. How about 3 days a week? Let's get an associate. Let's
Mhm.
sell." Like
Yeah.
oftentimes, I say, "Let's sell everything and downgrade."
Mm.
But again, the ego comes in the way. You've got the great big house, great big
Picture
office.
perfect.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'd get that a lot. I'm like, for me, I'd rather have my husband healthy and dad. So
Yeah.
those were all the small things, the signs. And then as the lawsuit occurred, then that's when the introduction, more pain, chronic pain happened. So more pills, more alcohol, his dad's
Yeah.
news. So it seems challenges will keep happening in your life. So his environment was really toxic.
Yeah.
What he did for himself, self-care was not there. He did not, work out. He did not, nutrition wasn't
Yeah.
as, I mean, he'd mock me a lot because I'm very much like organic everything and this. And then
Yeah. Yeah.
sometimes I'd make like these cauliflower
Yeah.
pizza and he'd be like,
This is so good. Yeah. Yeah.
he
Yeah.
would try, but his environment started becoming very toxic, so I
Mm.
truly believe that your environment that you choose will kind of create this toxic like poison for you. So drinking too much, the numbing, oftentimes we go to dental conferences together. It's staying up till 5,
Yes. Oh,
the
wow. Yeah.
partying
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so it just kind of
It catches
spar
up to
it
you.
it
Yeah.
does. It does, and not the self-care. So it just kind of spiraled that way. And then unfortunately, it just got worse and worse. So, but those signs were there from the very beginning, and that he wasn't willing to kind of dive to the roots.
So this is so good.
Mhm.
So good. I, I, I'm sitting here thinking of what that might feel like after someone's gone. Because I lost my dad when I was 29. He passed away. He had addiction issues, and he passed away a few years after he went to treatment. I lost Dave to addiction in, I guess, 2 years ago now. And the question that continued to repeat through my head for years was, what did I do wrong? What could I have done different? What if I would have said this? What if I would have, the last day, what if I would have said this or told Dave this? Would he have made a different choice? Whatever it is, do you have regrets?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, oftentimes like, oh, maybe I should have sent an army of people. I had started to tell some people, I've asked his dad and family members to really just maybe talk to him and seeing if he can get some help. I've had a fellow dentist to share their struggles and trying to get him change, get some help or perspective. And I do feel, what comes up for me, and I've done it all, the psychiatrist, the breath work,
Yeah.
and all that. And what comes up is boundaries. I never had any boundaries.
Ooh.
I
Ooh.
never had any boundaries. So I feel if I really had a lot of boundaries from the very beginning, maybe all of this wouldn't have happened.
Boundaries with who? With
With
Scott?
Scott.
Okay,
Yeah.
because you mentioned in
Yes.
your book
Mhm.
that you lived prior to his passing a life of suppression. So
Mhm.
does this all tie in? Can you explain?
Yes, yeah, I had learned, suppression from a very young age, so that never went away when I got married, and it's just people pleasing can and speaking up was really hard for me to do that with him, and
You
so
didn't want to rock the boat,
no.
create dis-ease in the home or whatever.
Yes,
You wanted the peace.
I did. And I mean, the times that I would, it would be shut down pretty
Yeah.
fast,
Yeah.
so there was that too. Right? So then I learned to just, I always said he would have been a really good lawyer, you know? But,
Yeah.
it's not funny, but it's just, so I just learned, well, I'm not getting anywhere. I do wish I would have had more boundaries from the very beginning when I do remember at one point, especially when I just had my daughter and he was getting prescriptions by 2 doctors. And
Mm.
I actually did call one doctor because they were friends, of course,
Oh, yeah. 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 Helping each other
yeah,
out. Yeah.
helping each other out. And I said, okay, listen, I don't know if you know, but he's getting prescription from this person and this is not very good. He's like, oh, I didn't know. So he stopped prescribing and it just,
It probably blew up.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I've had times where I dump it in the bath in toilet and then I get in so much trouble. Like it's just, but I just wish I would have, yeah. uh, I don't know. Maybe
I don't
I
even
don't
know that
know.
there's anything you could have
Yeah.
done. So,
Mm.
it's like we think that we have regrets, but the reality is, you did everything you did the best you could with what you had and what you knew. And I see so many similarities in you and I and how it sounds like you were raised to people please.
Mhm.
And, for me, it was like, don't ever tell a man no. Like what they
Mhm.
want, they get kind of a thing. And so there was a particular relationship for me where um it felt like it was very hard to express
Mhm.
and emote. And if I thought something or I suggested, shut down quickly. And
Mhm.
interestingly, so I'm hearing you say this, and I'm like, oh my gosh, sickness started coming to my body.
Oh.
And so I'm just imagining how difficult that must have been, to live inside of what felt like you couldn't speak much.
Mhm.
And so now here you are, because I see you're sitting in front of me now and you're so like bright and
Mm.
you're like in your voice.
Yeah. Yes.
How were you able to make that change after so many years of childhood to relationship, not being able to speak? How did you finally, and
Oh,
what made you choose it?
yes. Well, I think, once I moved here, I remember I said I needed a lot of space and I prayed on finding the right therapist,
Mhm.
and I had a fantastic therapist and I worked with her. I've worked, breath work has helped a lot. So I worked on myself because I also said, I don't want to go create the same patterns, right?
And you had
Yeah.
talked about the generations, like the ghosts or the
Mhm.
generational pattern in Scott's family. So
Mhm.
was suicide?
Suicide, yes, on both sides. So he had lost both
Oh,
grandparents on both sides.
wow.
So
To suicide.
his dad's mom and his mom's mom died by
His
suicide.
dad's mom and his mom.
Yes. So I
Wow.
really, of course, a big fear was that this happens to my kids. They learn that that's a way when things are hard, this is what you
Mm.
do. And so I was really rooted in just finding out actually what I got really interested in is hearing people that were at suicide ideation, really in darkness, what got them out. And actually, this is where it removed the shame and the guilt because all the stories that I had of the survivors, I said, okay, what made you switch? Like, was it something your significant other said? Was it something this? And most of them said, no, I finally had to tell somebody my true pain, or it was divine intervention, or they asked for help. They put themselves in rehab. They did, like, they had
Mm.
to make that decision to remove the mask and tell
Just be
exactly,
real.
just be real, you
Yeah.
know? And so that's why I wrote, the shame and the guilt. That's so what do so many people feel after suicide. I remember feeling in my process of healing that I was holding everyone's weight because so many people came
Mm.
to me for ask questions like, oh, what else could I have done? And I took it personal.
Ah.
Like they're looking at me like, oh, I didn't do enough.
Oh,
And so I felt,
added
yeah,
weight.
added weight. And I felt like I had to explain myself so much and this and that. And ultimately I'd be like, oh, I was holding a lot of people's grief and I had to
Mhm.
explain myself. Oh, this is what's going on. Cause a lot of people didn't know, everyone thought they were Scott's best friend and they're
Mhm.
like, oh, you didn't really know all what was truly going on. And so I realized I was holding a lot of that weight. But the more that I got educated on, people that suicide
Yep.
ideation, the more that I realized most people, they had to come out and say that what was truly going on and ask for help because we can't help them until we
Yeah.
know exactly what's the depth of their pain.
Yeah, and that I mean, in all of the things that you're doing, like that, this is um, such a vast, complex story with all of the things, there's like pain. And again, it's like there's joy. I know you had said in the book, like we still found joy or
Mm.
we still find joy.
Yes.
So what does joy look like for you guys now?
Yes. Well, very much I celebrate Scott all the time with
Mm.
the kids. And we talk about him because I could tell it's awkward for people to talk about someone that's like, do we talk about him or do we not? But we openly very much talk about Scott all the time. Funny stories about him. We celebrate his birthday. We
Yeah.
do actually, I just came back from Maui and I felt called to do an ash ceremony
Mm.
for the third year. And it's part of our healing. So I feel that that's very much I lost my the question
Oh
that you
yeah.
threw. I'm
How do you,
sorry.
what does joy look like
A
now? How do you
joy,
find, because
yes.
you
Okay,
say,
yes. To find the joy is mixing them both, allowing to be sad some days. Are we still
Mhm.
sad? It goes in waves,
Yeah.
with my kids. And I actually not too long ago, someone said, "Oh, Scott came to me and had a message for you and the kids," and I had to share that with the kids. And of course, my son just
Mm.
tearing. But just reaffirmed to him. I said, "Dad was always there. You can talk to." But so that's how we can find, that joy and the sadness. It's
Yeah.
always gonna be part of us, but it doesn't have to we can still be happy, and there's no shame in that, and I remember especially, after a year when I'm, like, moved here and I'm starting to do some work and I'm like, "Oh, I can go out and enjoy
Mm.
myself again." I said, "Okay." I had 1 year that I said, "Okay, I'm gonna introduce more fun."
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm gonna allow myself to have some fun, things I used to love to do, like dance and I've always wanted to do Latin dance because all my family members can dance really well.
Ah.
And I was like, okay, so
Mm.
allowing myself to have joy again. And so we do. We have a wonderful community here with
Yeah.
our friends and family. And yeah, so we try and integrate both. We still talk very much. I still have pictures of Scott in the house because I feel like that's good for the
Yeah,
for the
for
kids to see
sure.
dad still and be present. His guitar is
Yes.
there. And instead of like pushing it all away, very much still present in our life.
I wanna know, what do you miss the most about him?
Oh gosh, he had the best hugs where you feel like you're so safe. It's just so big, and then we
Yeah.
just felt so big and just his
Mm.
sense of humor. He was fun, and oh, he was fantastic. He had so many gifts, but he's a great guitar player. I'm pretty sure I wish I had one time given him this for a birthday to go record
Yeah.
himself, and he never went. But he was really good singer and guitar player. And so I remember we'd sit in the living room and he'd play, and that was my favorite thing, and the kids
Mm.
would dance, and Sophia would sing along, and so when we hear those songs he would play, we really love it. One of them is, "Flower in Your Hair" by Lumineers,
Oh,
and there's just a lot of country, we like that, and So yeah, those are my fondest memories. We love live music. So we went to, I think, the Gorge often.
Oh,
We've gone to Stagecoach because
oh,
so we, both of
the
us love it.
fun.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I really enjoyed that. But definitely his hugs. If I ask my kids to, it's his big bear hugs, that
Oh,
we truly miss.
oh.
Mhm.
How are your kids doing?
They're doing good. They're, you know, considering everything they've gone through, I feel
Mhm.
they have community, they have friends, they're doing fantastic in school, they're healthy, but
Mm.
there's there there's still trauma there. There's still where and that's why I brought my son and probably, we all do it at Dr. Amon's clinic for a brain
Oh, I've done
scan.
that too. It's
Yes,
phenomenal.
yes, it was
Yeah.
really informative because I could tell there's still triggers, and quick to temper. And I know that's just more inflammation, and that's a lot of the PTSD. And so we're still working on
Mhm.
that. I'd love to try EMDR with them because I've learned
Mm.
so much about it.
Mm.
What I've learned with my kids now is that if their nervous system, or even if mine, that's why I'm not as feel as guilty now for
Yeah.
self-care, because they co-regulate. Kids
Ooh.
co-regulate with
Oh.
you, right?
Oh.
So if I'm all frazzled and overwhelmed, there's gonna be chaos in the house. So that's why I go to, reconnect
Yeah.
and do cold plunge, and I do breath work, my meditations. Then that way I can show up for them and they can be regulated. But I can tell when they're not either. And I say, okay, let's go cold plunge. That works really well for my
Mm.
daughter. Water seems to be very healing for her. Or we go camping, go out in
Mm.
nature. Um, we we just connect. I've created this sacred corner in my room.
I've seen on your
Yeah. And we
Instagram.
have all the
I
sound
actually
bowls.
follow.
I'm honored. That's great. It's funny how the world
I
works. I
know.
mean, 2020, June, I'm doing one of your work. I'm like, oh, look at this woman. I
Yep,
like
yep.
her.
I don't think we've said it on the podcast
Oh,
yet, but
yeah.
Melissa came to my house today, you guys, and she walked in and said, I did one of your challenges. And this is the picture she held up. It's her
It says a check-in.
check-in in a
It's June
bikini. Yeah.
2020.
And now she's on my podcast.
Yeah. Yeah. I was like, wow, okay, this is
Oh.
incredible. But
But it's because you are you're healing yourself. I want to get back to these
yes.
modalities, but you're stepping into who you're meant to be. You're
Mhm.
like, there's so much, that's a hard thing.
Yeah.
There's so much fear in it.
Mhm.
I would imagine though. So going back to the modalities, you
Yes.
were talking about
Well,
co-regulating.
for the family, as far as the sacred corner, I have these cards, these feeling cards that the kids
I
can
do,
kind of
I
look
do
at,
this. Yes, I
and it's
love them.
fantastic because they look at it and then there'll be tools to go alongside. Okay, is it going to be hug a teddy, take deep breath? We
Oh,
do yoga, breath work, or they love the sound. They really do. And just Mateus is so cute. He's one that will, before bed, we either read, he loves to read,
mm.
and we'll lay there and I'm like, do you want to do a meditation with me? Yeah, okay, great. So
Oh.
teaching them these tools. So that's why I do call it a gift, because I never learned these things when I was, 6 and 8 years old. So they will now not have to live that. It's hard to earn wisdom that they will carry on. And we will continue to different modalities. I'd love, EMDR for them. I'd continue to nutrition plays a
Yeah,
big role. So I'm a big advocate for that. I'm a big no dyes,
yeah,
no
good.
thing for
Yeah,
the brain and health after being at Dr. Amon's
amens.
clinic.
Yeah,
So
I mean, kids having the tools to regulate their nervous system might be the most important thing, and it's so overlooked.
mhm.
It's something that's so I think people don't really understand that what we do to help ourselves is also what we should do for our kids. And I fall victim to it. Our family, my I try with my kids, but it's easier for me to go cold plunge for them. It's like, oh, you're fine. Let's just, do your sports and go to bed.
Mhm.
But I have the feeling cards that you're talking about. They're probably slightly different. That was one of the best things that I ever chose to do with my kids because it helped them stop and learn to dissect their feelings. And I can imagine as any child, like your children were healing, being able to like speak what's inside or see an emotion and say it and,
Yes, to
explain
process.
it and
Yes.
say, here's how it's manifest in my life. That's got to be something that just
Yes.
worked wonders.
Oh, I'd sit there every day, couple times a day, especially when we had just gone back to Alaska from Maui. And I still remember there was always like, sadness and anger. But I do remember one time uh, they had put joy. And I was like, wow, this
Mm.
was only maybe 4 weeks after. And I said, oh, wow. I'm like, why? And that was because we were just poured with so much love. I think we had a meal train for 3 months,
Mm.
meal delivery for us. We had cleaning services. We had baskets for the kids. So
Oh,
they were really worried how we were going to do without dad now,
yeah.
and that gave them a lot of hope. And so so that's it. That pain is still there, but it's not as intense. And we have the tools now when we do feel that pain, when we, miss Scott and, because you've missed the touch and the hugs
Yeah.
and his
The
presence, the
safety.
safety. Yes, the safety. But we look back to what can we do? How do we process this? Is it, let's write a letter to dad. A lot of times I'll
Mm.
ask my kids, let's write him something.
You are
You know?
guiding those kids so well. To have those skills as an adult will serve them in the most incredible ways. To just, and you are breaking the generational
Oh,
cycle.
thank you.
You are.
Yeah,
You're doing
thank
such a
you.
great job. Now, I love, I understand you've become like a voice, right, for mental health, and that's, do you speak on that, and
Yes.
suicide prevention. Um, what would you say is one message that you would like to share to the listeners today? Maybe someone that's listening that needs, what do they need to hear?
Ah, I always say that you're not alone, you're not alone, and it's okay to share your truth. And nobody's going to think you're any weaker, or because there's a lot of shame maybe coming up and saying, and there's other people that are out there like ourselves that can guide them through that first step. It could be
Mm.
overwhelming, but just tell one person your truth
Mm.
and see that open up more doors, but just you have to share your truth. You just share your thoughts,
I love that, and just watching your journey. I like, I know there are people listening right now that are like, man, I have a story. Everyone has a story. There's not one person listening that doesn't have a story.
Mhm.
And there's, inside of the story, there's a lot of guilt, there's a lot of shame, there's a lot of fear of what will people think when they see all of the parts of my story. I can imagine
Oh,
all of that kind
yes.
of went through your mind. Like,
Mhm.
how are they going to feel about me? Is it something they're going to think I did something wrong? What are my kids going to think? Is this a good idea? Is it, all of it is like about how we look, our ego, right?
Mhm.
Like, how's my ego going to be hit if I share all of it? Take off the mask. I admit that there's problems. I admit that there's pain. uh, wh- how is it going to feel? And is that something I can actually do? One of my favorite things that Kira has says about writing a book, she says, the book you write is the one that will heal you.
Oh, yes.
So it's actually, yes, you you wrote a book for the world, which is awesome. And people don't even have to write a book for the world, but to journal and to share. It's really about healing you first.
Mhm.
And as that comes out, and then it's like you start to realize that, I was it so scary to publish it and to have
Oh,
people read it.
so
Ah,
scary.
ah,
So scary. I thought, well, I'm going to lose some friends.
eh,
I have family members, and what are they going to think? But
and what happened?
just surrendered like God's, like I
Yeah.
had just had faith in. I'm like, okay, God, I'm doing it. You told me to. And you know what happened? I have more authentic relationships. It was actually, I think it was really healing for others as well to hear the whole story. But
Mm,
I actually ended up having more deeper connections with
yeah.
people, and it was my whole truth. I didn't have to hide anything anymore.
Mm.
And it was actually a big weight got lifted off. And now all my relationships are so authentic. Is whoever aligns with me. Well, now you know my story, and so yeah, it allowed more peace. More
Yeah.
peace.
Yeah. Vulnerability and
Mhm.
a true authenticity, when you show someone who they really are, or show people who you really are, um, you're going to lose people.
Mhm.
You are. And then also, you're going to gain the right people.
Yes.
The ones who are meant to stay in your life will have deepened connection, like you just said. I love that. And also, I would bet that the reason your connection's deeper with them is you. So when you can courageously and vulnerably share something that's so scary, you unknowingly give everyone, like, the thing that you're scared will make them run away. Like, if I share this and if they know who I am, if they know what happened, they're going to run. Actually is the thing that makes them say, oh my gosh, that was the most beautiful thing. Like, if she can share that, if she can heal that way, so can I. Hold
Yes.
on, maybe I can share. So you, in your vulnerability, were are giving people permission to do the same, which will catapult their own healing in whatever they're
Oh,
doing.
yeah. You don't even know how many times I've
Yeah.
had people that now saying, I've never told this to anyone, but they share now their stories. They don't have to hold that for themselves. I've had women that were in abuse relationship, like typing, on social
Yeah.
and now they're out of that. And,
Oh, I have chills.
or
You're
there's
saving
people, yes,
women.
and there's some people that said, oh my gosh, I'm going to go get rehab. I finished your book and I'm
Oh,
calling them as they step in their first day to rehab. So
full body chills.
for me, this is all my hopes that I would have if it would save one life, but I already know it just allows others to not sit in that shame of where they're at and see that clarity, like there is hope. And actually, once you step into that, then you leave a legacy of strength, right?
I have
Right?
chills all
So
over.
your kids will look at you, if you have kids or family members will look at you, wow, how strong you were to step into saying, I need help. They're actually not going to say that's weak. They're going to say that was so strong. And you're going to now I tell these people and women, some are men, you will now inspire others. And they can't wait to do that. So that's like that give back. It's healing for me as well, of course. And my kids hearing these stories, because often my kids, we love going volunteering because I know that's, it being of service is very healing. And I remember going to a women's shelter and House of Refuge. We love going there. And they allow kids there. And my daughter's, she's helping with other kids there and she's hearing their stories. And she's like, wow, Mom, and I think her knowing she's inspiring others is healing for her too. So
Melissa, you are creating and leaving a legacy.
thank you.
And you are most certainly saving lives and creating life for people. And I'm actually very excited for everyone to hear your story and to hear not just your story, because you're so much more than your story. You are so powerful and fierce and determined and resilient and just bright.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you.
I'm telling you, like, what listening to you speak today is, and comparing to day one.
Oh yeah.
I remember you were so nervous.
Oh, I was so
And
nervous.
but what I loved about this is I remember day one for me on camera, so nervous. Day one for me doing anything, right? Like one of my
Yes.
favorite quotes is John Acuff says, have the courage to suck at something new. You had the courage. I'm not saying you sucked.
Oh, I was nervous. I look back and
No.
even just my first
No.
podcast, I'm like, ooh,
But what I love, you will love that first video for the rest of your life.
Yes.
You will forever be like, oh my, like it's so terrifying to put it out, right? But forever you'll be able to compare. Like you were so poised and you're not nervous in front of the camera. You have all these lights on you right now. You have people watching you, right? And you're just in it. And you're so certain you're connected to your mission. You know your purpose. You are ready to serve God and the people around you. And it's so beautiful. And that never would have happened if all of that hadn't happened. And if you hadn't chosen to try something that you were absolutely terrified of. So I hope that everyone listening right now, I hope they get, I hope they feel heard and seen in their grief and their pain. I hope that they also see themselves in bits of you that allows them to step out of either suppression, fear, isolation, sadness, and into and disconnected from purpose and into their God-given divine purpose.
Yes.
Because you shared. So I just want to thank you because I know that's what's going to come out of this. And I'm so grateful that you're here. Um, what's one final thing you want to say?
Mm. Yes. One thing that I always say that everyone grieves differently. I never want everyone to compare how I grieved and whatnot and go in their own pace, but I also want them to inspire them. Like I said, I never thought I'd write a book. I never thought I'd be speaking in front of people, but just don't put those limitations for yourself and get uncomfortable. Reconnect to your heart or soul purpose, and you feel so much more fulfilled. Now get into creativity, and I feel so alive, and living a life of purpose feels so good, you know? And so I just want to tell people just not take that first step, you know, not to be afraid.
I love that. Number one, where can they find you? Number two,
Yes.
where can they get your book, The
So,
Truth Behind the
yeah,
Smiles?
my book is on Amazon, The
Okay.
Truth Behind the Smiles. It's on Audible. I actually recorded it myself. And because I'm a big Audible person as
love
well,
it.
because I'm out
You
in the
did a great
go.
job. I
Oh,
listened to
thank
that.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you. It was hard. Oh my gosh. I did it in 2 days and I was like, oh my gosh, this is harder than I thought. But and also I have a website, melissagratitude.life, because I'm now a breathwork facilitator as well. And I'm a speaker. I'm actually speaking in a couple of weeks. I've been flying out to Utah for a dental retreat, and I'm
Yay.
speaking in front of 100 dentists and their significant others, and hopefully making an impact. And I'd like to continue to do that, especially also in the dental community, because I think it's definitely needed. And I'm providing that hope. But and then on Instagram, it's Melissa_gratitude. You know the theme, gratitude, because
I love it.
honestly,
Oh.
I'm grateful for all the good, the bad. And because really you have to start your day every day with gratitude.
Oh. The only thing I'm going to end with is you said, hopefully I make an impact. There's no hopefully in that. You already are making
Thank you.
impact. So thank you
Well,
for
thank you.
being
Well,
here.
thank you
Thanks
for allowing
coming
me
to my
this
home.
platform too. Thank you
Oh.
for having me. Thank you.
You're welcome.